finally worked out exactly what it is I love about bartending, and I'm going to share it with you. Welcome to the bartenderhq.com podcast with me, your host, David Eden-Sangwell. As usual, we are going to talk about the latest industry news along with our main course. And on this week's show, that main course is why I love bartending so much. First of all, industry news. Here it comes. It's going to be really, really quick. The latest industry news from Bartender HQ. So the first thing that caught my eye this week in industry news is that dissolvable tablets have been created that will instantly create a cocktail flavour. Now I found this really interesting because I've actually been sent some sachets of cocktails, essentially. So it's a whole cocktail apart from the alcohol in a powdered form, in like a crystal form. And I went to the Vanguard with Sam and we tasted them, and there will be a video coming up later this week if you would like to know how a powdered old-fashioned, a powdered margarita and a powdered Bloody Mary taste. So these dissolvable tablets, essentially you drop this little kind of Barocca style tablet into your drink. It adds all the flavours. Quite interesting. Not quite sure what the application is going to be for bars. I think this is probably more for people that travel quite often and want to be able to get a consistent drink, maybe in a hotel room, something like that. Grab your bottle of duty free and mix up your own cocktails in your hotel. Also, Grant is launching a special edition whiskey called Distinction exclusively in India. Now, I think this is really interesting. I know we have a lot of Indian viewers, Indian listeners to the podcast. Obviously, William Grant & Sons has some astonishing whiskies in their range. But it's really interesting, and I would be interested if any of my Indian viewers, perhaps some of the guys that I used to work with out in Dubai, have tried this. Let me know, drop me a line, and let me know what it tastes like. Just a quick update on Bartender HQ. Obviously, we've been doing a little bit more. There's been some recipes gone up on the website. Happy days. Still out and about with ODK, and we are. I'm still out at TGI Fridays, slinging bottles around. There's a lot of flare clips going up on my Instagram account, so check it out at bartenderhqpics. Before we get into the main course, I am going to apologise. My voice is horrendous today. I have a horrible sore throat, so please do excuse me if my voice starts to crack, if it sounds awful. I'm really, really sorry. I'm actually here in the lounge today because I was getting quite a lot of echo in the studio, and I wanted to just see when we're out here and there's a lot more soft furnishings, if that is going to help to make things a little bit cleaner sounding. The main course. So, why I have discovered I love bartending so much. Now, this is one of the things I think that's come about from all of the other work that I've been doing, everything that I've been doing outside of actually bartending day to day, where I've been working for brand agencies and sort of approvals that you have to get for things, and there's always a lot of red tape. However, when I'm bartending, I'm completely in control of my guest's journey from start to finish. And I think that is such a key that I think is probably underappreciated in the drinks industry. I don't think there's any other role in the bar industry, in the restaurant industry, in hospitality in general, which relies so little on other people as bartending. And let me tell you why. Let's think about the other roles in the restaurant. So our guest's journey, if they're coming in to eat with us, or they're coming in to join us just for a drink even, they're going to arrive at the front door, potentially be met by a host. Now that host, if they are waiting for a table or wanting to sit down for a meal, they're going to greet them, they're going to take their details, they're going to check if they've got an existing booking, and then they are going to either take them to a table and sit them down, introduce the menu, and then obviously the waiter will take over from there, or they are going to be brought to the bar potentially to wait for their table, at which point the bartender takes over. Essentially, if the bartender's not there and the waiter's not there, the host cannot do their job effectively. They can take people to a seat and sit them down, but then their experience is going to stop. It's going to come to an immediate stop. For the waiters, they may not necessarily rely on a host to seat people. The waiter could quite easily go up to the door, greet people, bring them through, sit them down with the menus, and go and take their orders as soon as they're ready. Of course, if the waiter takes that order for their drinks and there's no bartender there, for simple drinks, yes, the waiters can probably grab those straight away. But if you've got more complicated cocktails, anything that's got a little bit more skill and knowledge involved in the process of making it that the waiter's not aware of, then it's going to be very difficult for them to actually make that drink well and serve the guest. By the same token, the waiter is going to really struggle when they place an order for food if there's no chef in the kitchen. And in the same way, the chef is never going to get that order for food unless the waiter takes it. The chefs aren't out on the floor, they're not taking the orders, so their role relies on the waiter. The only role, I think, in the restaurant, I mean, the manager obviously is there, but they're kind of overseeing everyone else there. The only role within the restaurant or within a bar that can work pretty much independently, they don't always, but can work independently, is the bartender. Think about it. The guest walks through the door, they can quite easily walk up to the bar on their own. They don't need to be greeted by a host. They walk up to the bar, bartender greets them, sits them down, introduces the menu, potentially builds that rapport straight away. Then the bartender's going to spend a little bit of time explaining the menu if it's that kind of setting. If it's not, the guest's going to place their order with the bartender takes the order, produces the drinks, maybe even gets feedback from the guests on how they prefer their drinks, produces the drinks for the guest, delivers it to the guest, gets feedback again, makes sure that everything's good, everything's as the guest would like, takes payment, makes change, delivers that back to the guest. This whole journey for the guest is self-contained within a bartender and within the bar setting. I mean, yes, we will on many occasions have barbacks working with us to help us to take the pressure off of us for keeping everything stocked up and keeping everything running smoothly. But if that barback's not there, we will do that role. Whereas if a chef hasn't arrived, the waiter is probably not going to be running out the back once they've taken an order, cooking the food, bringing it to the table, then taking the plates away, washing the plates. The bartender is generally washing all their own glassware. They are preparing their own mixers ahead of time. It'll be the bartenders or the bar team at least that is producing any in-house ingredients, that's doing all that prep work to make sure that the bar is ready to greet the guests, stepping outside the bar, making sure everything's clean and tidy, quite often checking even the toilets to make sure that the toilets are still in good shape. The bartender is kind of an amalgamation of everything else in the restaurant. Yes, obviously, if we're in a restaurant setting and the bartender is selling food over the bar, you've got a chef involved. But the core role of the bartender is to take orders, make drinks, and turn that booze into money, as we've talked about in previous episodes. And there's nobody else in the restaurant that can do everything from guest arrival all the way through to the guest paying and leaving without interaction from another department. The bartender is the only person that can do that. And I think that's really why I enjoy bartending. In the other roles that I've had in the past, there's been a lot of reporting. You've got a lot of things that if you come up with an idea, you need to get it approved. With the bartender, you literally control that whole experience for the guest from beginning to end. And I love that about it. You're not relying on anyone else to be doing their job as well as you're doing your job. You are in complete control of that guest's experience all the way through. Even to the point where bartenders will often be managing conflicts that come up in a bar between different guests, potentially even between servers and bartenders and things like that. The bartender tends to be the one that will also manage those conflicts and kind of diffuse things, make sure that things don't get out of hand. Quite often bartenders take that role as well, and I don't know why it dawned on me the other day, but this is the key to why I love bartending, because I haven't got to worry about anyone else doing their job well. I know that I can arrive, I can do my job well, I can go home happy in the knowledge that my guests have had a great experience. Now you've heard this, is this something that resonates with other people? Is it just me that feels this way? Or, I mean, I love also being a part of a team. I love sharing my knowledge with other bartenders, and obviously receiving the knowledge that they've gained, because everybody's got a different story. Bartenders come from all backgrounds. They have previously been chefs, they've previously been waiters, they've previously bar-backed. They might have come from completely different industries and bring skills from those other industries to the bar. But at the end of the day, we can put that work in ahead of time, especially even flair bartenders. Flair bartenders will put so much work in their own times at home, outside of their work hours. Most jobs, you will be trained on the job to be up to the level that you need to be. And that happens a lot as well with bars, and many bars will train their bartenders to the basic level to make sure that they are able to offer the drinks to spec, look after their guests in the way that the bar wants it to happen. There's very few roles where you will spend a lot of your time outside of work, in your own time, practicing your job. And flair bartenders are one of those people that really do put in the hours. You cannot just walk behind the bar and just do it on shift. Like, it almost becomes second nature as well. When you pick different items up during your day, you will throw them behind your back, behind your head, over your shoulder. It just happens. But I think that's part of the pride that flair bartenders take in their work. And when we did the discussion that we did for the Craft Bartender Forum, I think one of the things that came up was that craft bartenders don't tend to flair, or craft cocktails don't tend to be as associated with flair. But that's something that we need to change. That's a perception thing. Perhaps we have got a lot of bartenders out there who focus more on the entertainment than on the drinks. The drinks has always got to be the number one thing. The drink is the product that your guest is buying. The entertainment and the flair is all stuff that kind of adds to the atmosphere, adds to the experience for your guest, but it's not the product. The product is always going to be what that guest buys in the glass. So I think it's vitally important that if you're a flair bartender out there and you're not that worried about the drink quality, please reconsider. I think that's going to be vitally important going forward for if we want flair to continue to thrive. That is vital, that we make sure that our drinks are as great as they can possibly be. And that doesn't mean that we have to take as long as some craft bartenders. I always laugh when people tell me that flair bartending takes too long, and then I see the length of time that people spend waving a lemon twist or a lime twist at sort of near a drink and nothing's actually happening, or the amount of time that people take jigger pouring, when flair bartenders have mastered the art of free pouring with such accuracy that I was beating people using a jigger on accuracy by free pouring in a competition a while ago. I don't know how that works, but it did. And I've always thought that to be able to flair behind the bar and to be able to actually have that kind of panache and that kind of style with the way that you work demonstrates immediately to a guest that you're an expert at what you do, and they never really question. If somebody that is fumbling and free pouring and spilling things everywhere, then the guest is going to think, I don't know, I can't reliably know that I've been given the amount of alcohol that I should have done, and that this drink is made to some sort of recipe rather than just being thrown together. But when a bartender is moving with the fluidity of a flair bartender that's experienced and not dropping anything and everything's precise and everything hits, and flair bartenders serve very, very quickly because they'll be throwing things to get them out of the way for the next item to come up, as well as using it as part of the show. I never get questioned on the pours at all, because it's obvious that you're an expert at what you do. You've demonstrated your expertise in bartending purely with the way that you move behind the bar and the way that you can throw a bottle and not really watch it and just catch it behind your back or whatever the move is that you're doing. So, flair bartenders out there, please make sure that your drinks are as good as they can be, and if they can be better, make them better. If we need to pre-batch things to make this quicker, pre-batch. We have got an interesting conversation coming up as well with Sam about pre-batching. We have some different views on it. He does it in his bar and then sort of contradicted himself on something that he said the other day, and I pulled him up on it, and we're going to have really quite an interesting conversation, I think, on some of the techniques that are coming through now. I'm not going to tell you who's on what side of what. I think pre-batching works in the right settings, but not everywhere and not all the time, if that makes sense. But yeah, we're going to have a really interesting conversation on that at some point in the very near future. But for now, guys, I'm sorry my voice is going to give out. I'm going to wrap it up, and I will catch you guys on the next bartenderhq.com podcast.